Welcome to the Five of Us. We are five outspoken women with close to 150 years of experience as broadcast journalists. We left our jobs on the very same day, and we are dedicated to helping women avoid the many pitfalls common to the workplace. We've heard from hundreds of people recounting tales of woe on the job, and we have done the research, we're putting it all in a book, and we are here to help. I'm Roma Torrey, and along with Kristen Shaughnessy, Janine Ramirez, Vivian Lee, and Amanda Farinacci, we are the Five of Us. Hi, everyone. Every day, it seems, there is a report of massive layoffs in one company or another, big and small. And huge swaths of the workforce in a particular company seem to be going down the drain. And it is very scary, I'm sure, for the people in that company because they don't know if they're going to be next. If there is a move to downsize, some companies, and these may be, these are the companies where some of the folks are lucky, some companies offer buyouts, which can be mutually beneficial, but not necessarily. So we have some tips and some advice for what to do if your company is offering a buyout and how you should proceed. Taking things, though, a little bit further than that, what we have heard a lot of stories of people whose companies have laid off so many members of their staff that certain individuals end up having to do the work, not only fulfilling their own job functions, but they end up having to do the job of other coworkers who were let go. It could be 2, 3. In one case, we saw a woman from the Daily News posted that she was doing the work of 5 coworkers who were let go in the downsizing for one reason or another. And it's awful. And in those cases, then it might be time to consider asking for a raise because you're doing twice the work or 3 times the work for the same pay, which doesn't seem very fair. So first things first, though, when we talk about layoffs, it's numbers. We only hear numbers, but there is a human aspect to this. People are losing their jobs, they're losing their identities, they're losing their livelihoods, and it hurts. And there is an emotional component to all of this that often gets lost in the mix. So, Kristen, you were the one who brought this up to us earlier this month. The number of layoffs in just the last 3 months is astonishing.
Just in January alone, it's incredible. I'll give you some stats. There's an executive coaching team that did the statistics. 82,300 layoffs in January.
Wow.
82,000. So that's all those lives disrupted. Google expects to spend $700 million in the first quarter on its severance costs. And last year, they had a bunch of layoffs after mass layoffs. They spent $2.1 billion on severance and related costs. So it's expensive. We had that conversation earlier on another podcast. I think it was at the beginning of last year about how layoffs are expensive for companies and maybe you should try to retain them or not hire people that you don't think you can keep. Just to give you an idea of some of the other layoffs that we're hearing about, I feel like every single day there's a big headline. Deutsche Bank, 3,500 jobs. Citigroup announced mass layoffs of 20,000. That was 3 months ago. PayPal, 2,500 employees. Wayfair, 13% of their workforce. Twitch, 30% of its workforce. Hasbro, 20% of its workforce. So you get the idea. There was this video that went viral. This just happened this month. There was a Cloudflare account executive who had not been on the job very long. So obviously, first one in, first one out, right? They had these layoffs. So she gets a phone call. She knows what's happening because it's been happening to her entire team. So she's smart. She thinks ahead. She records it. And what you see there is how the human element is missing in a lot of these times. So I know somebody who got laid off this summer, and the people who were laying him off did not even turn on the camera. It's outrageous. And then wouldn't answer any of the questions or respond to any of the emails after that. So it can be very dehumanizing in a way, the way people do this. And there's a lot of emotions that go with being laid off. So anyway, her name is Brittany. She's fairly young, but she was smart. She recorded this. So there's 2 people. I don't think she even knew the 2 people. And then they try to tell her that it's work performance. And she had just started 4 months ago. So she's like, okay, I was onboarded for 3 months. Then we had Thanksgiving. Then I had basically a couple weeks of work, Christmas, and now you're telling me it's work performance. But everything my manager has said is that I'm doing an excellent job, that I've really, performed well. And now, so give me an example. And they could not do it. She was basically calling their bluff. And it was sort of fantastic to see that, she was going to get laid off no matter what. It got so much that the CEO actually had to respond to it. So that's how viral it went.
Who did the CEO say? We don't know.
Yeah, it was the same old bullshit that they give. But the fact that he had to respond to someone who had just been hired at his company 4 months ago, he should be answering, why did you hire someone if you didn't think you could keep them longer than 4 months when she was performing? So,
they handled it so badly because it would have been, it hurts to be laid off, but there are genuine reasons why people get laid off. And probably the company wasn't making enough money to sustain the workforce. And they could have just said, we're downsizing and we're very sorry, as you put it, first to get last to get hired, first to get fired. It's terrible. Yeah, they were not.
Instead, they're using performance, and I was just like, when she's calling, she's like, okay, what are the metrics? And they had nothing. They just didn't expect her to push back. She's like, you're just going to go on and you're going to do this to the next person, and you're going to do it to the next person, and you're going to go home and you're going to, eat dinner.
Yeah, it was great to see. She stood her ground, but the poor thing was, she was tearing up, and it's heartbreaking to watch, really. Yeah. Well. So for the lucky ones, or are they lucky? I don't know. There are buyout offers in some businesses. And so Amanda, why don't you tell us the pros and cons of buyouts?
So, okay. First, I think that if you are at the point where you are offered, or that there's the word buyout even exists, you've got to know, right, that there's like something going on in your company that is going to take it in a certain direction. So if you're in the position where you actually are in the conversation about having a buyout, I will say that you are more fortunate than the people who, like we just talked about, who are sort of like in a pool where there's not even the option, right? So let's just like start by saying, if you're in the buyout conversation, you're probably in a better position than somebody who's just like either blindsided by a layoff or just like a forced layoff, right? Because at least, a buyout comes with some things. When you read articles about this, they always caution that buyout regret is real. So like if you decide to accept a buyout, you need to make sure that the package that's offered is one that you can live with. I think there's a couple things to consider. Where you are in your career. Can you take your contacts with you? Can you get another job? Are you at the end of the road where, maybe you were going to retire at a certain time and this allows you to retire a little bit earlier, but you still got the cushion? You need to, the pros would be, I guess, as I said, not getting laid off, getting some kind of valuable package financially, certain months, health insurance, retirement benefits, an ability to negotiate for some of these things that go back and forth. The negatives is you might not be ready to go. Like, how many people have we heard, especially in the news business, right? Where like there are some people who are like been around for like literally what feels like a million years, right? Like the original photographer is still on the streets of New York City, right? Like, and you think like, geez, when is that guy going to take a buyout? The problem is like, some companies offer it in waves, and you pass the first time, you pass it up the second time, pass it up. We just saw recently that people finally conceded at one local station and took the buyouts that they've been like sort of stalked with for the last probably 10 years. I would say that those people are in a great position, and I feel happy that they were able to, move along. But part of the challenge of making that decision is that you have to make sure that it's are you really not going to work anymore if that's where you're going? Do you have other career options if you want to continue to work? You have to just make sure that you're not. I think what happens is people get enticed by, oh, they're going to give me like a lump sum of money. That's so cool. It'll give me time. But like, is it really enough money? Is it really enough time? Is it really enough cushion for my family with my health insurance? You have to be really, I think, strategic about accepting it, because as I said, when I started this, like the regret and the remorse for taking a buyout is very real. And so the decision you make obviously has lasting impacts. I think, again, that you're in a better position than if you were just straight up laid off. You have some negotiating power and, whatever. But it's not an easy decision.
Yeah, you know where the regret comes? I think when your employer offers you a buyout, I think you first have to decide if you have a choice in the matter, because a lot of people think, well, I'd rather stay in the job. And then they find out they're laid off 2 months later without any severance whatsoever. So you have to determine if you have a choice, because if you don't have a choice, then you're going to have to take the darn buyout. But Vivian, how does one position oneself for the best buyout deal?
What I read in one source, especially when it came to seeing the signs around you that something is going on, there's belt tightening, resources are being depleted, jobs are being merged into one, is to try and figure out if it is the right time, as Amanda was saying, for yourself, and to let HR know to some degree. And I know we've talked about how HR is often not your friend, but in this particular case, it's worth noting that a company chooses buyouts or layoffs for particular reasons. And one good reason is the PR, which is trash their company so much. And of course, there's always the NDA and the non-compete that may come with a severance package, but companies don't want to be known for being heartless. At least they didn't used to want to be known for being heartless. So there's that factor. There's also the factor of being able to rehire some of those that were let go. I think one of the major car companies did that because so many of their managers walked out with this collective memory and know-how that they actually hired some of them back as consultants. A worker who is considering that maybe this is the time to do it should just kind of start raising flags that they would be ready. They would be open to at least talking about it. There's also something else to consider, that if buyouts are starting to circulate onto you, like you're hearing word of that, try and keep in mind that maybe this is a sign that your position is going to be eliminated altogether. So there are some companies that really don't care about that reputation, but there are others that do. So it really comes down to your workplace. What is it in the business of doing? And would it behoove you, to use one of Amanda's favorite words, to let people know that you would be open to it? The thing about buyouts for an employer is they have to have enough of them, and they take a long time to work out. Layoffs are kind of easy, they're like messy, they're very emotional, but then the workplace can usually just get right back on track and focus on what their business is. Buyouts take a while to work out because if the employer is good and smart, they will give the employee time to think about it. And an employee really should take it to an expert, talk to their financial planner, talk to their partners, their spouses. And usually that's about 2 to 4 weeks, maybe less these days. So it's not something that a lot of companies do. And as Amanda was saying, if you're in the running for a buyout, then it's definitely better than suddenly being given the pink slip.
Yeah, no,
I
true.
don't think you have much of a choice. I think it's when they tell you, we're offering you a buyout, it's because the company is changing direction. It's because that whole department is going to be downsized or your job is going to be eliminated. I think it's just a way to say, like, we kind of thank you for your service. But if you say, I don't want it, I want to stay, then it becomes like, okay, well, you may get laid off with nothing. You may walk away with nothing after all that time. You may have to reapply for a job that you're not qualified for or is really like menial compared to the work experience that you have. It may be another job in the office that doesn't pay as well as you were paid anyway. So I don't think there's much of a choice. So I think you're going to have to wrap your head around it and move on, whether you want to get another job after that and keep your buyout and work somewhere else again, or just retire after that, depending on your financial situation. But I don't think that when somebody offers you a buyout, that the smart thing is to say, nah, I'd rather just stay.
Yeah. Well, I think in some cases, though, it might be possible to negotiate a new arrangement. Like maybe you work half day or something. If they're concerned about what they're paying you, maybe you want to work part-time, or you might, I don't know, there's a million things that you might be able to change in order to maintain your job, as long as your boss is telling you honestly that is a possibility. Another consideration with these buyouts is sometimes when they dangle that lump sum in front of you and it seems like so much money, and then all of a sudden you find out like most of it is going to get taxed, and then you're left with a lot less. So when you're considering a buyout, and also maybe you do have some leverage in terms of how much you can get, or how they can compensate you in different ways, but you really should consult a tax expert, a CPA or even a tax attorney, just to make sure that you're getting a fair deal. It's rough. And Kristen, you I know had pointed out, don't sign anything until you read all of the fine print, right?
Well, they're going to pressure you. They want you to sign it because as soon as you sign it, they're done with you. So the longer you take, they're on their radar. So use that time to be smart. And it's very emotional. So you have to get past that and then just do your due diligence and ask people a lot of questions and try to take the emotion out of it and get the best deal you can. But do not take the first deal ever.
Yeah, agreed.
We've
All right.
heard stories of people who have been offered, right, and then refused to take the severance because they didn't want to sign an NDA, for example. When we talked in a previous episode about NDAs, that's a very real likelihood that you will have to shut up about the work experience for the rest of your life, or else pay a huge penalty. And some
it
people
might be different now in New York, right, with that new rule. It might be different.
Right. So now it's illegal for employers to put NDAs into any cases that involve sexual harassment, discrimination, up until, when was it? Late last year? November
I think it was
2020.
November.
Whenever it was enacted, yeah. Unfortunately, it's retroactive, unfortunately.
Well, it should be.
It should be. All right, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about how to argue for a raise, how to negotiate in good faith with your employer for a raise, considering, we're in this culture where there's a lot of layoffs, and so maybe that works against you. But then again, if you're doing the work of 2 and 3 people and your work is solid, you do deserve the raise. So, Janine, as we've seen, and this is rather typical, women have a much harder time asking for more money than men. What's the problem there?
Well, I think that a lot of it is a confidence issue. And I saw it was like a TikTok or one of those things about, and they asked about dating, even a guy versus a girl. They were just like, okay, now the person you have to date, would you rather date a 10? A girl that looks like a 10, or would like an 8, 6, 5. And then the guys are like, oh no, I need a 10. I need the 10. Like I need to be, I need to feel good about myself. And then there goes the females, and they said, well, I would settle for a 5 or a 6 in the male department. Because then I don't have to try so hard, then I don't have to feel that pressure. I would feel a little bit more confident in the relationship. So the confidence level alone, I think going in and asking for a raise, the guys' cojones are like, woo! I need the raise. And I think that level of confidence is sort of what then drives maybe the management into a little bit more respect, because you value, right? It's like their value, here's what I'm valued at, here's what I want, right? Here's what I deserve, kind of attitude versus, well, I kind of think, I'll set a little bit. I'm so glad to have the job and I'm so happy to be here. That kind of confidence is not going to work, right? So I think that that's part of the reason. But tips for anybody going into going for a raise and ask for a raise. Some of the tips are you have to talk about your current role. Here's what I do. Here's how I've performed for the company. Here's how I collaborate with others. You have to sell yourself, right? It's it's a sales pitch. Here's a new idea that I've implemented that has, earned the company money or prestige or whatever. So you have to sort of project your value. up front. And then you can't give them a yes or no question, like, can I have a raise? I mean, that kind of puts the manager as like a yes, no, like the answer is probably going to be no, because
No, right.
they just got bombarded by you coming in and asking for a raise, and the answer is going to probably be no, because they haven't even really thought through the budget yet. But if you kind of approach it as, I want to stay here, I want to grow with the company, help me create a path so that I could get to the next level. I want to be able to be, be a higher earner here and have more responsibility. So kind of create that path. As opposed to just giving them a yes or no. And then, don't wait for your performance review to do it. They said by the time the performance review comes around, like the budget has already been set. They already have a number for what your salary is. So try to do it like, some other time in the year before budget time, whatever time that company sets as their budget, to go in and say like, listen, and then when they're doing the budget and looking how much, what item you are in the line for that amount of money, they may say, oh, well, if we create a different role for this person because they came in to see me and they'd like to stay and grow with the company, maybe there's some room that we could add something down the line for this person. So timing is also good. Don't go in there and ask for a raise because, oh, I have somebody in the hospital and they're sick and I need extra money. Like, don't make it personal. Do not bring your personal business into your manager's office asking for that raise. The only way you should talk about some outside thing is maybe just to show a little bit of personality. I mean, personality, this is what I do, or take some kind of work experience from the outside. Oh, I volunteer at such and such place. And in my role in volunteering, I've learned X, Y, and Z, which I then bring to the office, like kind of make the correlation between outside, something that valuable that you're doing on the outside that you could bring into the workspace if you're going to talk about outside at all, but don't bring up personal stuff other than that. But the absolute best way, I mean, the whole mic drop is when you say, I got another job offer.
Yeah.
You either match or, beat the job offer that I got because you're threatening to walk, basically. So that's the best way, obviously, the best ammunition you have to go in there and get your raise.
I would also add that like one of the easiest, fastest ways that you could literally Google the thing is like, what do other people who do your job get paid? Find literally the highest price and print it out and hand it in. Like, oh, this person does this job and has this is the same skill set, resume, whatever that I'm doing, and they're paid, $70,000 more than me. Why the F am I not being paid that? Pay me. And go there because it's information and you can't, there's nothing personal or opinionated about that. That's a fact. Someone else gets paid that amount of money and it is what it is. You can't argue with facts. Right. Especially, how people are so aware of gender, pay parity and, gender biases and stuff like that between women and men. Like you can't argue with the money. Right. Yeah. You just can't.
And right. And, the bottom line is you got to do your homework before you go in there. You can't just emotionally say, I want more money for whatever the reason. If you, see, maybe the guys in your office are making a lot more money. I mean, it's terrible, really. No guy should make more money than a woman in a comparable position, but it happens. But that cannot be your only argument. You have to argue for yourself why you deserve to be equal to that guy. And you have to prove it. And, sadly, women have to do more than men in order to achieve parity, as we've discovered. But, do the homework, do the market analysis on, comparable jobs that you have. And also, find out how the company is doing. I mean, you can't really demand a raise if the company's going down the drain, right? I mean, if they've lost money.
Can't you though? Haven't you seen a man do that? Haven't we seen many companies where like everything's in the shitter and the guy just got like a $40 million bonus?
Yeah. And right. And doesn't seem like that. Yeah. It only happens to the guys, right? That women don't.
Yeah. I've also seen a lot of guys who aren't good negotiators and didn't know their worth too. So I think obviously, women have to, I think, fight harder. We're not as good at asking for raise, but I do think one thing, I like what you said, Amanda, just having that information, but also whatever you want, I'd ask for at least 25% more because you need negotiating room. Do not ask for your top number. Don't say what your top number is. That's like
Exactly.
You're a novice, right?
Oh, exactly. And, that's the other thing too. You have to learn to negotiate incrementally, right? So if, let's say you're making $50,000 and you walk in there and you say, well, the comparable positions in other businesses is getting 70,000. Well, then demand 90. And then they'll come
Right.
down to, they'll say, oh no, we'll give you maybe 80, and then you're kind of in the catbird seat because you're already now you've got $10,000 more than you wanted. So then you can say 80, okay, how about 85, and then they'll come down and say 82, and then you'll say 83, and then they'll say, okay, 80, or 82.5, whatever it is. But I mean, that's how it works. The other thing that I read was really fascinating, that the kind of the difference between men and women when they get into these kind of negotiation situations. Men go in there demanding a win. Women go in there with the mindset that they want a win-win. They're a little more, what's the word? They're a little more generous in terms of saying, I want to win more money, but I also want to help you, the company, win more money as well. And so if you work with me, I will make you more profitable. It's that kind of thing. And they're a little bit more considerate of, the company that they're working for. And it kind of, I know that people were saying that, if women just followed their better instincts, they would they'd be much more successful in a negotiation situation.
I will tell you what one of the head of the company told me once, and it was when we were in contract negotiations. I might have shared this already, but I had an agent at the time. I'm sure they were saying shit about me because they didn't want to pay me, whatever. And he came in and said, just remember, it's just a game. And that has stuck with me, because then I knew, okay, I can play this game too. If you're going to say all the things that you're not going to pay me for, I'll tell you all the reasons why. So it opened my eyes at a very early age, and it helped me a lot through my career. It's just a game.
Yeah. And Roma, to your point about how women go in with the win-win attitude as opposed to men, like winner take all or nothing, it's all or nothing. I think women should maybe start to see that as a real advantage, like something to be played up and played up and played up and played up, because
that's what I can do for you. Yeah.
Right. Because it really does, like, just on a human level, it sounds so much better. It makes the argument that you are a team player and that you deserve to be recognized as such with the raise just all the more stronger. At least it raises the volume on that. And I don't think women do raise the volume on that. Did I freeze again?
Yeah, but it's right. Yeah. And it's about added value, right? What value so you have to value yourself, right? You kind of have to have that kind of confidence to go and say, like, here's my value, and you need to recognize this, right? So
it's so interesting, because part of why we started talking about this is because I recently attended and listened in on like a workshop about how women should negotiate, and like, negotiation. And there were some of the people who were part of it are people who are like the top of their field, and they are, speaking to a group of women who are all with the same question, like, how can I get a raise? How can I get what I want? And the top thing, to your point, Janine, and I think what everybody's been sort of echoing is like, you have to fake it till you make it. Literally, that's how they started the conversation, which was like, fake it till you make it. You go in there, and even if you feel like you're gonna like shit yourself, you go in there and you say like, "Oh my goodness, I know what I'm worth." You go in there armed with education, within your ammunition. Your ammunition is your information, your value, your comparable statistics, and the idea that you are not taking no for an answer, which I think as women is a challenge, right? Because like, I remember being in contract negotiations and being like, well, I this is what my number is, but like, I don't want to price myself out. Like, I still need to be relevant. Like, I'm already, as a woman, trying to make myself malleable to whatever else is the environment is. And a man just wouldn't do that, quite frankly. So like, it's almost like my takeaway from having listened to the whole workshop or whatever was like, that you really need to go in almost like yes, as women, we have empathy, we have all of the nice, kind pieces, the soft edges or whatever. But when you're in that scenario, you really got to put on your game face and you just got to go in and ask for what you want. I do think that like when you sort of like dumb it down that way, it takes a lot of the pressure off because you don't have to like have the emotion about it. You just say like, this is what I've done. This is what I want. Here's how we're going to get it. Let's talk. I think that changes your mindset about it and it makes it a little bit easier to do it. And I will say, having done some of this pretty recently, it's such an adjustment and it's very uncomfortable. Like it's very uncomfortable, but you just shut the F up and you do it. And you get, and then that's when you get what you want. But it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge, I think, for women.
You have to go in with the attitude that you deserve that money. It's not like it's not a favor, you know, you're not asking them to be kind to you. You're demanding or asking, well, you're insisting that the money that you're asking for is what you deserve. That is your worth, you know. We always end with a quote, but I came across with 8 phrases you must use during salary negotiations, right? And it goes like this: similarly situated employees. So that's where you're looking for parity. Market research, doing the research. I would be more comfortable if, you know, because they're going to try to lower the amount to you. I want to be as flexible as possible, but, right? And sometimes, you know, the flexible aspect, maybe they don't want to give you more money, but you might ask for an extra week of vacation or more flex time or more time spent doing remote work as opposed to in office work. That's another, you know, option that you might have. Value, which we've said, this is my value. And then you can say, well, if you do that, then I'm on board. But there's always sort of a quid pro quo. And then never shake a hand in a negotiating room when you're talking to a supervisor, superior. Say, let me think it over. Let me think it over. And then make sure everything is written down. And what was the last one? I appreciate your help with this. Always show a little gratitude. And I'm grateful for all of you guys, all 4 of you. It's been a real lively conversation. Good luck, folks, when you go out and look for that extra money and the raise that you're going to be negotiating after this conversation. So we're going to bid everybody adieu. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you'll join us next time. Thanks for tuning in to The 5 of Us. We want to hear from you with any questions, ideas, or suggestions for future discussions. Just write to us at the5ofuspodcast@gmail.com, and remember to spell out the 5, and we will be eager to help. Talk to you next time.